what we were asked to talk about is some of the things that make us unique, some of the challenges we faced, etc., etc., etc. And I think for me, what has, without trying to sound too self-indulgent, what has made me unique, or has allowed me to have a unique perspective and a unique vision in some ways with the things we try to do, is the way I was brought up. In some senses, I had a very stereotypical inner city upbringing. I didn't grow up with my dad. We didn't have a whole load of money, blah, blah, blah. You know, some of the friends I've grown up with have gone to prison. You know, the familiar stories that we're used to seeing so much. But then on the other hand, I had a mum who wasn't having a bar of it when it came to education, and someone there that I just knew, and my godfather as well, someone that I just knew, if I messed up, there was always someone to answer to, and that made a very big difference. I also had a certain amount of cultural foundation. My stepdad was the stage manager at the Hackney Empire Theatre, so my whole youth growing up, I'd spend 3-4 nights a week at the Hackney Empire. I went to a special Saturday school which taught, you know, African Caribbean culture and history and a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily learn on the curriculum. And so I had this sort of dichotomy where on the one hand, you know, I had many similar experiences to a lot of my friends, and then on the other hand, I had something that was very different and unique, and a sort of something that balanced me, and it gave me a unique way to see things, and also gave me a little voice at the back of my head when everyone was misbehaving and getting involved in things that we shouldn't perhaps have been getting involved in. I had this other thing sort of pulling me in the other direction. And it's sort of at the cross section of these two things, I used to play football. As a teenager, I played for West Ham United. And what football did, even though it wasn't what I ended up doing and I eventually fell out of love with football, football again gave me an occupation. It gave me something 3-4 nights a week, most Saturdays and Sundays, that steered me in a particular direction away from, I think, some of the pitfalls that some people I've grown up with have fallen towards. And I think all of these sort of factors came together to give me enough confidence and self-belief that when the time came, even though I didn't end up going to uni, I barely went to college, I'd have a sort of educational vision and a passion for education that came from these cultural inputs, but also actually came from hip-hop. Growing up listening to KRS-One, listening to Public Enemy, listening to Wu-Tang, a lot of this early hip-hop gave me a real sense of entitlement, because I felt that these were people who I could relate to. They were people who weren't trying to be somebody they were not. They didn't necessarily come from the hallowed halls of academia, yet they felt a right and an entitlement to put words like benevolent in a rap song. And so growing up listening to these kind of artists also filled me with a certain amount of passion for education, but also a certain entitlement. And I think all of those factors have fed into the way that I view the world. But then on the other hand, some of the biggest challenges you face are those same challenges. And I think it's easy now to reflect and look back once you feel that you're past many of those challenges and say, oh, well, it all worked out for the better. And it's very easy to forget what things were like when I was 15, 16, 17, the aggression and the feelings that I had, and the difficulties I went through at school, the difficulties I went through with police, for example, getting stopped and searched whether or not I was in trouble, and all these sort of different challenges that you face along the road growing up in a city like this. It's very easy to look back and sort of romanticize them and see yourself as being clear of those hurdles. And what I try to do is, by working with as many young people as possible, and by trying to keep myself surrounded and immersed in what's really going on, is keep a realistic perspective on the challenges that people are facing, and on ways that we can help provide opportunities and not waste human resources, which is what I think it comes down to. You know, there are, in my opinion, you know, systems in place and ways of managing people in place that don't necessarily allow us to make the most of the human resources that we have. You know, we have tremendous potential that can end up in the wrong place, not being utilized correctly and not being utilized to make the societies that we live in stronger and better. And for me, all of these questions of what have inspired me to do what I do. You know, really wanting to make a difference more than I wanted to be on television. Wanting to inspire people more than I necessarily wanted to drive a Bentley. I'm not knocking people having material success. Everyone wants to be comfortable, but at the same time, I suppose that's the question I really want to leave people with. I want to ask people is, what is success? You know, and for me, that's been a big question throughout my entire life. What is success? What does success look like? Is success measured by how many people you touch, by how many people are inspired by what you say, by how many lives you improve for the better, or is success measured solely by your bank account? And I think for those of us who are social entrepreneurs, or try to be social entrepreneurs, try to balance the realities of business and the realities of having to pay bills with also a deep desire to want to help people, this is a question we've always got to ask ourselves: what does success look like? And I think that's something you should all ask yourselves tonight, and something we should constantly be asking ourselves along our personal journeys, along whatever hurdles we face, and something that we can only personally ultimately answer for ourselves. So hopefully I'll see you again later on this evening, and I'll leave it there. Hopefully big up whoever comes up next.